Good afternoon, friends. This is Scott Hooks, pastor of the Tabernacle Baptist Church, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak to so many of you. We certainly miss seeing you this year for our REST conference. Let me just say a little bit about the REST conference and why we would go to the effort to have the meeting in the first place. One of the great opportunities that God gave me in my life was to work on the staff of the Temple Baptist Church in Powell, Tennessee, and Pastor Clarence Sexton, who was my pastor and is my pastor. That's the way I refer to him today. One of the great events that we had there, among so many events, was our pastor's college. And in that time, when we would have men come from across the country and spend a week together, we would have meals together. Pastor Sexton would speak to them and teach so many wonderful and helpful things. I found it was one of the most enjoyable weeks of the year for me personally. And in that same spirit, Brother Paulie and I, Scott Paulie and I, partnered together to host the REST conference. It's a conference that, well, really, it's not even rightly named conference. We don't want you to feel like you have work to do because we want you to come and rest. And one of the things I've found in pastoral ministry is that you do need time of refreshing. And that doesn't mean necessarily that you go find a retreat somewhere or you take a week and go to the beach. No, and those things have their place. But it means that we find our rest in the Lord himself. And we can find our rest in him in the midst of our work and in the ministry. And as I was able to be involved in those pastors' colleges and build relationships with those preachers and was so strengthened and helped myself, in that same spirit, we launched out with the REST conference. And let me tell you what the agenda is. It's really simple. It's to spend time together in the presence of the Lord, to be encouraged and to be refreshed. We receive that from him and his word, but we also receive that from one another. And in that spirit, we began the REST conference. Now, unfortunately, because of the situation we've been dealing with COVID, we weren't able to meet together here this year, and I regret that. But we're looking forward with great anticipation to 2021, September 6th through the 8th. I hope you will plan to be with us. Brother Mike Norris, who was scheduled to be here with us this year, has agreed to come and be with us next year. And so we'll look forward to a great time together. We have sessions, messages from God's Word. We have things for the ladies as well. This is a meeting not only for men, but for men and their wives and all who are in Christian service. And so we hope you will consider being with us beginning next September. We'll have meals together, and we'll do some activities together as well. It'll be a great time of refreshment for you, and I hope that you will plan to come. And we have that one agenda in mind, and that's to encourage you, and that's it. And so I hope you'll plan to join us. Now, as we talked about not being able to be together this year, we thought we would just do some brief videos and try to be an encouragement and a blessing to so many of you. And Brother Paulie and Brother Norris, their videos have already been released, and I was so greatly helped by them. Galatians chapter 6 and verse number 9 gives us our theme verse for this year. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And Brother Paulie gave a wonderful challenge concerning that subject. Faint not in these days. May God help us to stay faithful. And then Brother Norris spoke to us on leading in difficult times. And we've certainly been dealing with difficult times. I want to speak to you just for a few minutes on this thought. Ministering Through the Seasons of Life, or the seasons of ministry. And we do go through seasons. As we read in Galatians 6:9, the Bible said, "And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not." Of course, we know Solomon said in Ecclesiastes chapter number 3, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Hosea said, "Sow to yourselves in righteousness, reap in mercy, break up your fallow ground, for it is time to seek the Lord, till he come and rain righteousness upon you." You see, the farmer was to break up the fallow ground. He was to sow the seed, and then he was to seek the Lord. There was a time to plow. There was a time to pray. That time, of course, was after the planting. So the time to plow, then the time to plant, then the time to pray. And in that time, when you're praying, all you're doing is seeking the Lord and waiting on him till he come and rain righteousness upon you. You know, one of the hardest things to do is to wait and to endure those periods of waiting. I love the springtime. It's one of my favorite times of the year. I love to see the green leaves coming up on the trees. I love to see the horizon brighten. I love to hear the birds singing. I love to see the blossoms begin to shoot forth. It encourages me, especially after a long and gray winter, looking at barren trees and barren plants and barren brown fields. It's great to see some life. And then you get into the summer, and that's enjoyable too, until you get into those dog days of summer with the heat. And then you go into the beautiful part of the fall when the leaves begin to change, and the crisp autumn air is refreshing. And there's certain things you think about and certain activities that you do in those seasons. Well, life is like that. There are seasons of life, and ministry is like that. There are seasons of ministry. Now, I'm an impatient person, and God is working in my life to help me develop patience. But I like to see things happen. I like to know that things are moving forward. And I've learned that as a pastor, there are seasons of ministry, and there are seasons that churches go through. We go through times of opposition. That's not enjoyable. We go through times of testing and trials in our ministries and in our personal lives and in our families and in our homes. And Paul told Timothy, he said, "Endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ." We've been going through the last 6 months a really unprecedented time where we weren't able to meet together. And we were shocked that we couldn't do that. That was a shock to my system, to think that a church can't meet together. And then as that pandemic situation developed and it became sort of a reality that we weren't going to be able to meet this Sunday or the next Sunday or possibly the one after that, and then it endured and endured for weeks on end. And many of our friends are still dealing with this difficulty even to this day. Well, in those times, we've had to learn that when our routine has been changed, when what we expect to happen has changed, then we've learned to depend more upon the Lord and look to him each day. God is at work in this season. And early on in my heart, I decided that if God is working in this season, he has a purpose for it. I don't know what that purpose is. I do think one of those purposes are in my life. And I thought, I don't want to miss what God has for me in this season. And it's allowed me to reflect upon some things, upon my own personal life, my own walk with the Lord, my home life. What needs to change? It's allowed me to reflect upon my church and ministry life. You know, it's amazing to see that all of the measurables that we once had in our mind that would determine whether or not we had a good Sunday, all those measurables were removed in just a matter of moments. I mean, when you're preaching to a camera each week, you really don't know who's listening. When you can't hear the people singing, when you can't have a choir sing, when there's no sound of babies in the nursery, nobody walking the aisle, all of the measurables that we once held to and said, this means we had a good Sunday, they were gone. And God helped me, and I trust He's helping you to see that some of the measurables that we have really aren't measurables at all. What's really important is that God is with us, that He is in our midst. And if He can teach us that through this season, then praise be unto God. I said just a moment ago, the winter is one of the times that I enjoy the least, but it's an important time. You see, after the crops have grown and after they've been harvested, the winter is necessary for the ground to be replenished, to give rest, so that the ground is prepared and ready to be broken up again at the time of plowing. And we've been through a winter, so to speak, in our ministries and in our churches. But God is doing a work in us, a work in our people. And we trust that He's going to allow us to get through this season and to put the plow in the ground and to plant the seed and then seek Him for the harvest. And as He sends the rain, as He sends the blessings, to see those tender shoots come forth out of the ground and to be able to walk into those fields and reap the harvest. You see, God works in seasons. Let's not shortcut those seasons. Abraham tried that, didn't he? Sarah said, the Lord's restrained me from bearing a child. So why don't you go see Hagar, marry her, have a child. We'll help the Lord out. We're always tempted to get ahead of God, aren't we? But the Bible said, they that wait upon the Lord, they shall renew their strength. Let's wait on Him. Let's not get impatient. Let's not get ahead of Him. Moses slew an Egyptian. And he went back and saw his brothers the next day, his brethren. And they were fighting amongst themselves, and he rebuked them. And they said, wait a minute, do you intend to do to us what you've done to the Egyptian? And the Bible tells us that Moses thought that his brethren would at that time acknowledge and see that God was going to deliver them through him. And that is what God did. But He didn't do it for 40 more years. And so Moses fled to the backside of the wilderness. He kept his father-in-law's sheep. And 40 years later, God spoke to him out of the midst of the burning bush. He revealed Himself. You see, until Moses had been with God in the wilderness, he wasn't ready to go back to Egypt and lead the people to the Lord. There was a season, there was a work that God was doing in his life. I know in my own life when God called me to preach, I had a certain anticipation of how things would go. You know what I found out? It didn't go anything the way I anticipated. I remember getting frustrated. I remember thinking of ways that I could make it happen. And I'm thankful that God didn't allow me to go far with those efforts, but he taught me to wait on him. And in his time, he counted me faithful, and he enabled me, as Paul said, and he put me into the ministry. I'm thankful for the 8 years I had at Temple Baptist Church. I'm thankful for the faithful ministry of Pastor Clarence Sexton, his influence on my life. God used him in a mighty way in my heart. And some of you who are helping in a church and you can't wait to get out and do things on your own, be the pastor. Well, you're going to find out you're not going to do them on your own then. You're going to need the Lord, and you're going to need the lessons that you're learning right now and the tutelage that you're getting. Enjoy the season that God has put you in. And then when you are in pastoral ministry, and many of you who are watching this are, you know there are seasons that you go through when it seems like God is blessing and things are going well. And then there are seasons where people just seem unhappy and disgruntled, and it seems like not much is happening. And in those times, we're tempted to quit. And that's why Paul said to Timothy, endure hardness. Some of you are going through trials. People may be attacking you or misrepresenting you or misunderstanding your motives and questioning you, and that can be very discouraging. But the Bible tells us to keep sowing, because in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Don't quit. Keep your eyes on the Lord. The sun's coming up. The spring showers are going to fall. The harvest will be plenty. And when we see Jesus, it will be worth it all. Well, God bless you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us remotely for the REST conference. Please plan to be with us September 6th through the 8th, 2021. God bless you. We love you.